actually, hi, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Or good afternoon.
Okay, good morning. Okay. So yeah, since this the Christmas time is coming, you look like Santa Claus.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Bring us
Thank
good
you.
fortune also. Yeah. Good. Very good. Okay. So before we have a pause session, let me have the short introduction of Paul to everyone. And actually, Paul is my very good friend in Norway, also from EMCC. And Paul has been the founder of EMCC Norway a couple of years ago. And now he's holding this honorable ambassador of EMCC Norway. I think so. Paul did a great job in developing EMCC communities in Norway side, and also has a lot of practice in doing this mentoring with these tacit knowledges together. So today we are going to listen to how Paul will share with us his wonderful topic for how can tacit knowledge help us accelerate green technologies, which is mentoring programs. Now let's welcome Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you a lot. So can I just share my screen then?
Yeah, you can just share your screen. Yes.
Okie doke. And thank you for the introduction, the kind introduction, Fisher.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. 主持人给他一下权限，给他一下权限，授予主持人给他这么一权限。
So,
okay, just a second. Let me try to figure out the technical issues.
Sharing.
Okay, great.
Then, so I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, perfect. Maybe you can put into a play mode.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. There we go. Then I want to minimize up there, I think.
Excellent. Thank you.
So there we can go. So yeah, you had an introduction. And when I was confronted with this, I thought my own tacit knowledge is coming from a long career in business. And I thought, how can tacit knowledge help accelerate green technologies? And I put that into three, what I call accelerators. One is collaboration and shared language. In order to cooperate, we need a shared language and we need dialogues. So that's the first accelerator. And the second is that we have different types of mentors. And the third point is, how can we create mentoring programs? So I'll go through those, but I have a slide before that. And I said, as a business leader and as business leaders around the world, and we are several 100 million business leaders, we have to take care of the future of our children and grandchildren, and this cannot be the postcard that we send to the future. So it is a call to all business leaders around the world to use tacit knowledge, to use mentoring as a tool. Who am I? I have been working for General Electric in many years, and Europe and global missions as well. I have been and that was 11 years plus in General Electric. An executive search, I was a founding partner of International Executive Search Federation and a global practice leader also for a couple of years. Then I have done management consulting, executive coaching, and managed and helped with turnarounds. And I've been a lecturer at the Norwegian Board Academy for 7 years on topics like international corporate governance and psychology in the boardroom. Education-wise, I have an MBA from 1984. That's how old I am. A Master of Science in Psychology from Stockholm, and a relatively recent, 7 years ago, a Doctor of Psychology from London. These days, I'm an executive coach. I am an EMCC Master Practitioner and Supervisor. I have a small clinical private practice, and I'm a clinical supervisor at the Middlesex University, which was my alma mater. But most of my time is in green mentoring, which is becoming a full-time global project. Now, the thing is that we have never done a green shift before. So we need to acknowledge that it is a complex endeavor, a complex project, but we also need tacit knowledge coming from somewhere. And that is the main thrust of my presentation. Innovation happens in all sectors these days. We have it in energy, transportation, all the way through to healthcare. But innovation is not used anything until it is used and somebody buys the products. So I call it lifestyle design, because we have to change our ways of consuming, of behaviors, of traveling, and so on and so forth. And it's not easy to change lifestyles. I'm sure you tried many things in the past, as I have, and it's simply difficult. The other thing is that with new technologies, the cost is always higher. That is one of the reasons why we need to shift subsidies from fossil fuel and fossil sources to green technologies, because otherwise it's probably not going to be fast enough. Which means that there is a role also for the public authorities. It is a global problem. It's not restricted to a country, and therefore we have global politics. But the problem is that politicians don't produce anything. And the forefront of all of this is in this quadrant. We need responsible business practices everywhere. And the circle behind this is simply signifying that we have to cooperate across sectors. Brings me to the first accelerator, dialogues. I mean, like in a war, we need dialogue, we need collaboration, we need sharing models, and we need less competition and more collaboration. This has to happen pretty fast. The problem with tacit knowledge is that we're talking about perspectives, mental models, and it's fuzzy and it's contextual. In science, we had a big discussion in the 1960s where Popper said that science is brick on brick, and Stephen Kuhn said, no, in fact, we also have radical shifts. Now, they argued a lot, but of course, both are right. The same happened with Einstein versus Bohr, where Bohr invented quantum physics, and Einstein didn't think that was right, but he yielded in the end. In my own area, psychiatry and psychology, we have two different ways of looking at science, even, which can be interesting, but also very, very frustrating. Now, in terms of dialogue, what we mean there is experts working together with respect, curiosity, and an intention to understand each other and working together. We've had some very good successes at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in the medical field. If you lose a leg or lose an arm, it's possible to create prostheses that even are connected to the brain. I mean, you can see how that is cross-functional. A more mundane, maybe, example is from my own background in GE. where the guys came out with new refrigerators that were vibrating a lot. The motors were vibrating a lot, and they could not find out why. So they called in their colleagues from aircraft engines, and aircraft engines don't vibrate a lot. They found a solution within a very, very short time. That was also a cross-functional thing where you can work together and in a dialogic sense. Why we need a shared language? Because we are using the same words for very different things. We live in different realities, and a word can have more than one meaning. So you have to explore the meaning of words. There are also cultural differences. A culture is not necessarily right or wrong, but it is what works and what has worked in the past. So these cultural differences also come with different words. And then we have family trees, like in science or like in businesses. We have different theories about the world. Now, for the green shift, we need to share even if we compete. And we need to compete. I mean, that's the world we're living in, but we have to share. And we have to avoid misunderstandings. Now, one big role is there, or a big tool is standards. And when I was sitting in the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, I thought it is a great way of bringing people together. And I think we tapped into tacit knowledge when we did this work back in 1984 until I think I exited in 1992 as a GE representative. So we went through different stages there, and we hope that the EU taxonomy, the definitions of green and the lighthouse examples of green technologies can cascade much faster than the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are pretty fuzzy and abstract. So that is our hope for standards, and standards are needed in this project endeavor. The second accelerator is to use all three types of mentoring. And I'm calling them expert mentors, people who are coming from the outside, and then the champions who are working inside a company, and then the mentors in the general sense that can help anybody from lifestyle to senior management. These have different purposes and will have different backgrounds and even different tacit knowledge. So the expert mentors will have access to knowledge and resources. They will have a better view to emerging models and best practices, and they will be bringing that into companies. They will also have analytics and tools that a single company may not have access to. So they kind of work as guides in this sense. Then we have the company champions who have the contextual knowledge. They are the ones who know what's going on inside of a company. What is possible? What are the technologies? Where are the bottlenecks? And they, together with the expert mentors, can then create programs or projects for implementing the green shift. But imagine that you have a company with subsidiaries all over the world, or distributors all over the world, or suppliers all over the world. Then you need a roadmap, and the roadmap then is part of the program, and it applies psychology, which was what Jack Welch did when he was working on cultural change in General Electric. And a local mentor can also be on a weekly support or on-demand schedule. And this can go as big as you need. It is a solid structure for a company to bring on the green shift or any large project. when you need expert mentors, it is because you need to change your symbols and the beliefs in a culture. An expert mentor can help you to effective communications, messaging, and certainly also help with power structures. What can go wrong in companies? We know that in companies that do cultural change, there's a lot of ignorance, apparent resistance, and you need support from the right sponsors in order to succeed. And one of the most important sponsors is obviously the CEO. Now, you can also create social identity, identify early adapters, and make sure that you reach a tipping point. You don't need a majority, but you need a tipping point of about 20% of people. That's the research. And then you go into all kinds of problems, which an expert mentor can help you resolve, analyze, and prevent even. There's a lot of social psychology in what an expert mentor needs to know, and we call them a facilitator in green mentoring. Lot of talk in coaching and mentoring about competencies. I like this. It's coming from Ford Motor Company, where I was a coach for 4 years. But there's also an easier version of it that we're using in the Green Mentoring project. We're working first with relationships, analyzing your relationship, finding out what am I good at, what am I not so good at. Emotional intelligence is obviously one of the things that go under relationships. Then your presence as a leader. You have leaders who are very weak, and you have leaders who are probably too strong. What is your presence? What is your signature as a leader? And we work a lot on those aspects. And then you have the more normal things like goals and performance, the big why, as Simon Sinek says, purpose and leadership, and obviously also need to connect this to green knowledge. And there's a lot of Polanyi thinking in this, because in all of these areas, there is tacit knowledge, both from the mentor and from the mentee. Both have tacit knowledge, and it's a meeting of minds, and it creates a very exciting dialogue. Third accelerator, I call scale to millions, because this is a huge challenge ahead of us. And let's define program. The NASA definition of program is a collection of projects. I think this came out of the 1960s when they started to, with the moon project. It's highly complex, and they needed lots of projects, but they also needed to combine them into something that could be funded and managed. We have examples of this from using coaching mentoring projects. We always have important strategic goals. Percy Barnevik in ABB back in the 70s, early 80s, launched what they call the T50 project, which aimed at reducing lead times all over ABB by 50%. And they used champions to achieve that, and of course, external experts. And they were inspired, obviously, by Toyota and Kaizen and all those things. But they achieved a reduction of lead times of 50% worldwide. Jack Welch turned General Electric into a global company. That is also a program. It's not a single project. It's not shuffling the roles of the organization, but it was a cultural change. And Ford, as I mentioned, has had this global customer experience movement, to improve the experiences of their customers and potential customers. All of these three are just some examples of important strategic goals. And I think it's important to say that you need a strategic focus. Some companies are undertaking way too much, and that ends up by confusing their employees. Then you organize it as projects and initiatives. And what Jack Welch did at GE was to say it's three levels, three types of responsibilities or levels of responsibilities. Senior executives were responsible for best practices. And he himself went around the world with what he called teachable points of view, high-level messages, but he also communicated a lot. He probably communicated 80% of his time when it was most actively in change. And I was in Europe as a manager in the European metrics at the time, and it was a great learning back then. Then it has been criticized for other things, but that's beyond the point here. Then we have process mapping, which were done by champions. We call them champions, and with some facilitation from the outside. But probably what surprised him the most was the process at the shop floor, because he had what he originally called town meetings, where he wanted to know what is going on locally, what are the challenges that you have, what isn't working, and they created that into a workout process. It's because simply what he said is that there's nobody who knows the problems at the floor better than the people who work there. He was too far away from action to actually understand what was going on. So there he gave them a lot of power. Toyota has done the same thing with their systems. Now, a mentor comes from the outside here, can help bring tacit knowledge into these programs. Because one of the problems with tacit knowledge is that it is connected to experience. And if you don't have experience, how can you have tacit knowledge? So you need somebody who has tacit knowledge to come in and help you with things that you haven't done before. That's a very, very important point. And I think mentoring is better than consulting, simply because a mentor is not working inside a company, is working for the company, and is more of a sparring partner than a participant. So a consultant typically works there and then leaves again, and what is then left of the work. And I think this is transferable. I mean, working with programs, working with large-scale implementations is transferable to ESG. It's the same tacit knowledge when we worked with EBusiness. Now I'll explain a little bit about what it was. EBusiness took what we called hubs and spokes. In the middle, in the oval in the middle, you have the big companies. I was working with Ericsson, for instance, Siemens, Daimler, VIG, Walmart, you name them, lots of big companies. And they took a central initiative. And then they deployed it to all their trading partners on the supply side. That was the first priority. And it worked. I mean, we in General Electric helped companies implement thousands and hundreds of thousands of trading partners electronically. So that's the central idea, hubs and spokes, and it works for EBusiness, and it will work for ESG. Why not? The small oval down there is to signify that some companies are big enough to become their own hubs. So this is how it cascades. These initiatives cascades. They start with the biggest, most powerful, most connected companies, and then it just cascades through the world. And this process worked for e-business. We basically implemented e-business between 1984 and 2000. We started with the American standards in 1984. I was over in the US in 1987 to learn what they did, and I participated in the message development one, which worked with invoices, purchase orders, production planning, just in time, all those things. And I was a consultant and a principal consultant for Europe at that point. Then a bit later, there was another technique that came in, XML, which has facilitated or made possible these web shops and the Amazon and all those in the world. But my point is that these are processes that worked for e-business, and we were able to change the way businesses, as I say we in a very, very, very collective sense, change e-business or change the way that we were doing things from paper to electronic connections within 16 years, basically. And there's no reason why this tacit knowledge cannot be transferred to social responsibility and governance. So I hope that's clear. It's a bit technical, but anyway. Now, how do we achieve massive changes here? It obviously has to start with some kind of a model, and based on our analysis, we definitely need champions in a company. Champions are the guys who will work on the program full time, normally full time. Now, will be supported by an expert mentor. We think that is important to know, are you ESG compliant? I mean, will you get penalties from EU, for instance? Will my plan work at all? Do I have some easy wins? And how can I accelerate? So those are the things that can go on within a company. But then you need to communicate with your suppliers. And a very good example is Ericsson in Sweden. I know them well because I've sold them systems for e-business in the past, and I worked there also as a headhunter. They have now a program where they connect 435 of their main suppliers into their system to make sure that they are ESG compliant. And as I say, it's the same as the hubs and spokes thing. They are in a hub position. Now, we also need an intermediate step here towards lifestyle to millions, and that is the ecosystems. An ecosystem is not something that one company can do on their own, however big they are. It has to do with waste management. It has to do with recycling. It has to do with a better use of raw materials and getting away from rare earth materials, for instance, which is coming up as a big problem in batteries, for instance. So you need new technologies there. Now you need to do those things in an ecosystem. You can't do it on your own. But you need the initiative, and it needs to come from the million champions around the world. And then we can change. Then the offering to consumers, and if the price is right, I mean, they will choose green products. Why not? But the price has to be right, and the quality has to be right. But this is how you can create big change. Finally, I want to, I see I'm on time here. Finally, I want to give 4 recommendations, and all of these 4 have to do with tacit knowledge. One is that you need to select 2 or more champions. You don't go for one, because one person cannot change a group attitude. You need two. The other thing is that the second person is a backup in case somebody leaves or gets sick or whatever. I think in the ABB case, they had 200 champions, and in G, they also had a lot of champions. Now, when you select a champion, that person has to be respected. It's typically not a technical person. It's a person who has people skills, has worked in the company for more than 5 years, because you need to understand the nitty-gritties of culture, what is possible, who are deciding, who are the influencers, who are the gatekeepers, and there should be action takers from operations. This is not an HR issue. It is hardcore main business. How many you select is obviously up to also the size of the company and the complexity. Then you need to create a website. Because you need videos and endorsements from senior management. You need resources, videos from external sources. You might need a blog. You might even have a community where you can have questions and answers. I think that is especially important for the champions to support each other. And you would have tools like a footprint calculator, for instance. Things that are fun for family members. Then you obviously need to involve suppliers. Think about the value chain. You involve suppliers, distributors, logistics partners, and as I say, families. I mean, your kids and grandkids will love it. And the last point is you need to reduce the risk. All change has a lot of risk in it, and investors don't like risk much. You have to reduce the risk and I think one of the core critical success factors is to get assistance from an expert mentor. It's much easier to do the errors when in the planning phase. If you're not clear when you deploy it across the company, even if you only do it from senior management and down to middle management, you create confusion, and it's a nightmare to dissolve. So those were my four recommendations, and as you can see, it is a lot of tacit knowledge in there. Straight knowledge, we know a lot, but we need also to know how to implement that change. So so that is my presentation, and I thank you for your time. I think it's the whole idea here of this forum, and having it twice a year, I think that's an excellent idea. So thanks again. Stop sharing and give the word back to Fisher. And thank you, Fisher, for
thank you, Paul. Wonderful sharing. Actually,